today I wanted to talk about a trending DIY project that is all over the internet. I want to talk about it because the house that we bought recently actually the last owners did this DIY, and I really wish they hadn't. Now here's the thing. I love a good DIY project. I'm all for saving money, being frugal, doing things yourself, learning how to do things properly. But there's a point when a DIY project ends up being more trouble than it's worth in the long run, and I'm going to show you why. That being said, I'll be talking about the countertops, obviously, as you could probably tell from the thumbnail. The other thing is, yeah, there's dishes in my sink, there's stuff on my counter, get over it because this is a real house and we live in it. Okay, so the last owners in this house did the contact paper epoxy countertops, and from afar it looks amazing, and it fooled me. Because here's the thing, when we toured this house, we toured 8 houses in one day. We drove to a nearby city, stayed in a hotel, toured all the houses, put an offer down on one that day. It got accepted, but in today's housing market, we didn't have time to look at the details of everything. We just knew it was time for us to move out of our apartment and get in a house. And this was a good house, so we love it. We still love it. There's just, every place has its quirks. So I'm going to show you why the epoxy counters are not the greatest. The first thing we'll look at right here is that the epoxy dried in drips. Also, you can see it's pretty warbly, it's not even. So it's dried in drips, and that goes all the way down the counter, around, and over there too. So it always looks like something's dripping because it's literally dried drips. There is a way to take care of that, and here's the thing, I haven't done the epoxy counters, but I've seen them done in other videos just because I'm curious. And when it's like almost dry but not quite, you're supposed to wipe it. They didn't do that. Here's the other thing, or here's another thing. In spots, this is contact paper. Right here has been chipped away. There's no epoxy right there. And that's in the same thing in a lot of places, especially over here. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick up on all of this, but like what look like watermarks are places where there's not epoxy. And there's also places like right here where the epoxy buildup around the non-epoxied area is deep enough to cause a bubble, or like a reverse bubble, a divot, yeah. It causes a divot, and like that's here too, there, and then the other, it's also not even. There's bubbles and warps throughout all of it. So my counter never looks clean. Even when I wipe it down, it never truly looks clean. So that's unfortunate. The next thing is kind of hidden back here. So let me move this stuff. And do you see this corner here? This is contact paper on the wall, and it looks like they tried to spray the epoxy with something because it's a completely different texture. It's really weird feeling, and it also always looks greasy and dirty, but these droplets on here is dried epoxy. But you can hear it makes a completely different sound than even that. But right here, this to me looks like the paper rolled as the epoxy was drying. I don't know if that's what happened, but it's what it looks like happened. to me is that the paper rolled up right there from the corner, which now you know, I have just this random corner of wall there. So I hide it behind my food and stuff. My big bucket of rice, sticky rice, marshmallows. Yeah, the thing that makes me think that corner was on accident is the fact that this corner doesn't have that. On the edge here, it does have kind of a raised edge still, but you know, it looks different. Now it could have been on purpose. I could be misinterpreting what I'm looking at over in that corner, but I feel like if that was the case, it would be the same on this side. Now for the worst part of this. And I mean, I'm grateful to have this house. Getting it was kind of a miracle in the current market. And, you know, we got it for a good price before interest rates got even higher. But the epoxy counter, they didn't take out the stove when they did it, which means the stove right here is literally stuck to the counter. It is sealed to the counter. I cannot take this stove out whatsoever to clean underneath it. And boy does it need cleaning underneath, because first off, this drawer was already nasty when I moved in, but under here was where we had the biggest mouse problem, which they've been taken care of. We had an exterminator come take care of those, but his evidence said that the biggest mice problem was under the stove, and I can't get under there to fully sanitize it, which is really nasty. I am planning on taking this drawer like out to the yard and hosing it down with dish soap and stuff, but yeah, no, I can't clean under the oven because they sealed the oven to the counter, which is not great. Here's the thing. These epoxy counters are gorgeous. They look like the real deal from afar. I fell for it, and that's okay, because honestly, that was my bad. I should have looked more closely at it. And we still would have gotten this house whether or not it was real granite. Or epoxy, like we still would have gotten this house. But it's just more problems that I have to deal with. And yeah, it's good for like a short-term aesthetic, I think. Actually, no, I'm not even gonna say that. It's a good aesthetic, but I think the real deal or whatever was here before would have been better. Because I probably, even with like a cheapy, even if it was like a cheap counter surface, I could have cleaned it and felt like it was clean. This never feels clean. It never looks clean because of the warbles and the bubbles and the divots and the dripping and all of that. So if you're thinking about doing contact paper epoxy counters, my advice is to just not. Or maybe just do the contact paper. You don't need epoxy because you can wipe down the contact paper pretty nicely. Eventually, probably years from now, we'll rip this out and replace it. But with it being sealed to the appliances, that's going to be a heck of a job. It just looks like it's going to be more work than usual when we are eventually able to change it out for something better. So yeah, my advice, this is one DIY not to do. Now, I don't say that to stifle creativity. I say that to make your life easier in the long run. As always, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos. I try to upload most Mondays. If I miss Monday, I'll still usually get it up within the week. Don't forget to stay creative. Thanks for watching. Bye.